Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 2 of the Formula 1 2020 My Team career mode that we're doing here on this channel. Super exciting stuff today. We're getting into the first race of the season, but we're just going to go through and add some of the activities here to the timeline and fill that time. So I think we end up going with an aero and chassis focus or chassis focus and some driver training stuff. As I've said, I want to promote that second driver, Jack Aitken, and we know that the power unit's good, so we want to focus on aero and chassis. But let's get right into the car reveal. How cool is that? Super awesome stuff. I love this car, man. I'm getting really excited because there's a livery on the roadmap that I really want to get, but for the moment I think it's quite cool. What we've been able to come up with, this red and black color scheme, really pops. It's super cool. Getting into practice now though, it took me a few attempts actually. This was the third lap of the track acclimatization training. That's what that is. I had a little bit of a mind blank there, but nevertheless, we actually kill it on this one. I think we only get 2 greens or so. It took me a little bit to come to terms with this game because I haven't played a Formula 1 game since 2017, and you've got to get those braking points super deep, and you also just, because I've come from a set of Corsa Competizione mostly, GT cars, you really underestimate just how much aerodynamic downforce there is in a Formula 1 car and how much speed you can carry through corners. So whilst I was getting the racing line right, because I'm very familiar with the track, I wasn't carrying the speed that I needed to get these purple points. But you can see halfway through the lap here and we've crushed it. And I was still being a little bit conservative, and to be honest, I think with some of these programs, I also don't know how we didn't run wide there and ruin that lap. It was definitely way over the limit, but nevertheless, I find that the racing line that the game gives you to follow with these gates sometimes isn't the ideal one or the one that I would normally take, and so it takes a couple of laps to just find the gates and at least see what's what. But completely purple. I think we actually muck up the DRS input here and we go green, but we crush it and we can move straight on into qualifying, which is nice.
It's time to remind ourselves.
There you can see we finished P9 in practice. Obviously it doesn't mean much, but we're not too far off the pace. Jumping into qualifying as well, I try to, where I can in the practice sessions, I obviously jump out on a flying lap and jump back in, but when we're, I don't know, I like to kind of simulate what would actually happen on a race weekend. So as we give the camera a little wave there, I usually try to drive out and drive back into the pits, because it's also important to practice your pit entry for the race sessions, because if you don't get that gate right and you speed into the pit lane, you end up losing quite a bit of time with a penalty, and that's not what you want. Chucking on the softs, jumping out with park for me being accepted, and I had to leave this clip in. I wouldn't normally we'd cut straight to the flying lap that we do, but I'm still getting used to this wheel. It's a bigger rim meant for GT racing, so it means it's quite hard to get in and press the buttons that I need to get the pit limiter released and whatnot. I'm also getting used to the button mapping, so it took me a little while to try and change my fuel down from max. I'm using a keyboard off to the side to do that at the minute. I fix that later, but Lance Stroll was just not having it, not being very patient at all. I think that would have cost him some front wing, but I just wanted to leave that in because it really shows that the AI are not here to mess around nowadays. They really do not care. But our first flying lap, we've got a Renault, I think that's Daniel Ricciardo behind us, coming through the final corner. We actually get the power down nicely. Into max, we're flying. This is it. I'm ready to start my first flying lap on career mode. And Carlos is like, yeah, nah, bro. Nah, you're going to have to miss that apex. I'm like, oh, it's all right. We'll just set a bank of time. It's all good. And as a result of being offline, we cut the track and invalidate the lap. Anyway, A little bit later on in that lap, I was just trying to maintain track position, but I lost the rear and I was like, all right, I'll let him go through. They're probably on a flying. So I let Sainz go through, but he was, he kind of took it but didn't. Then he slowed back down. I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead, no problem. I'm getting frustrated now because I'm trying to keep temps in these tyres and he's still mucking around with me, so I just slowed down in front of him. I was trying to actually brake his front wing, I'll be honest, but I didn't get a penalty and that's fine. He was really annoying me and he cost me that lap, so he's still behind us right on our tail because I slowed down toward the end of the lap to make sure we got a good run onto the final straight here, because that's the most important thing. You could lose a tenth or two if you don't get that right. A couple of people leaving the pits, but I think we should get ahead of them without any issue. Yes, we do jump Hamilton, and this is it. This is the start of the first flying lap. I really didn't know where I was going to stand, to be honest. Obviously, we mentioned in the last episode that the 80 difficulty is probably a little bit too low, but I can't be sure of that. I need to jump in for a couple of different tracks and see exactly how the car's going to perform. Of course, we do have a Mercedes power unit, so the car's not going to be terrible, but we invalidate another lap. We were 5/10 up there and it was looking pretty good, but we came back into the pits, headed out, and I'm getting nervous now because we don't have a bank of time down at all. And we're in 21st place, the last of all of the runners that have taken to the track. I need to set a time. It doesn't matter how good or bad it is at this point. I just need to get something on the board so that we're not starting from the very back of the grid. Because to be honest, I don't think the car is a back of the grid car. I think we're a little bit better than that. But getting a good run through T1, T2, and now T3 as well. A little bit of a lock-up on the inside front. Jumping down to second too, you can probably take third through there, but I wanted to get it around the track. I was trying to set a bank of time. I wasn't trying to go as quick as I can. You can see the lift there that should be taken flat. I don't know why we took this through fourth as well. That should have been an invalidated lap, but I'm glad it wasn't. You can just see how much time we're leaving on the table here. Even this corner, I could have broken at least another 50 metres later there, and I'm just trying to get around the track. That's all I'm trying to do at this point. It's still coming together quite well. We're obviously considerably up on the lap that we'd set before in that first sector, but I'm just being really, really cautious. Another lift there that probably didn't need to take, but I just want to finish the lap. That's all I want. It's good though, the track's empty, there's nobody on it at the moment, nobody ahead of us, nobody behind us, so we don't have to worry about navigating slower cars in front or having someone try to overtake us behind if they're a little bit quicker, which is a good thing. But coming through, I think we're going to be in the 127-ish range? No, I'm wrong on that, 124.6. Puts us P11 though, only a tenth off Ocon, or almost 2 tenths. And we're already up 1.5 tenths of our previous lap. I'm trying to push now. We've set that bank of time. I can afford to go a little bit further and push the limits, take it close to the very edge. Of course, we're still wanting to just get around. We don't want to ruin the car. If we can gain another couple of spots, I'd rather do that than trying to gain a few more and throwing the car away into the wall. So again, that should have been a corner car, and I don't know why I kept trying to take it through with fourth. Later in the race we used third, and I think that's the way to go through there, at least with this car at this point in time. There's just not enough chassis, or there's not enough aerodynamic or mechanical grip. So nevertheless, 5 tenths up, which is, again, brilliant, because that's easily going to jump us in front of Ocon and probably Perez as well. 6 tenths now, almost 7 tenths up as we come into this right-hander. I was a little bit cautious now because I was kind of wanting to secure the 5 tenths. If we lost a couple more on the way in, I'd rather, again, gain those 3 tenths than throw away all of that time that we've gained. We're almost 8 tenths up now, and I just missed the apex. Got the turn in a little bit too late, which was a shame, but still we'll cross the line 6.5 tenths up on where we were in P7, jumping Albon just behind Sainz. So we're ahead of a Red Bull, which is exciting. But I'll leave it now to the commentators to introduce you to the track.
Months of rumour and speculation all come to an end today as we return to Melbourne for the opening race of what promises to be an enthralling season. Welcome along then to the Australian Grand Prix. We go racing today then in the state of Victoria, where the drivers have 16 corners and 3.3 miles to navigate at an average lap speed of around 120 miles an hour. The close proximity of the barriers makes accidents inevitable, and recent history shows us that a safety car is not at all out of the question. Can Mercedes start with victory in their bid to win a 7th consecutive Constructors' title? Could Ferrari or Red Bull establish an advantage early on? And with 22 cars on the grid, how quickly can the new team find their footing? Well, it's great to be back, Anthony Davidson. We've got a lot to talk about this year.
That's right, Crofty. It felt like a long winter, but it's good to finally be back. I have to think the usual suspects will battle it out at the front, but there are always going to be some teething problems early on in the season, so whoever can keep on top of their issues will have the advantage today.
As I mentioned earlier, we're up to 11 teams this season, with a new entry run by, well, of all things, an owner-driver. That's something we haven't seen in this sport since Hector Raback over 4 decades ago. So how are they looking so far?
It's hard to imagine how a small operation like that could survive in the ruthless world of Formula One. And yet here they are, first ever race, looking surprisingly strong. But there are no points for qualifying. Let's see how they fare in the Grand Prix proper.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Fen starts from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Vettel, Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Norris, Albon, Perez, Ricciardo, and McCarthy, Kvyat, Ocon, Lance Stroll, and Hamilton, Gasly, Giovinazzi, Kevin Magnussen, and Jack Aitken, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out. Then let's see who can prevail today.
So our teammates down in 17th place, I think that one was, that I saw. We're quite up the order. We ended up finishing, I think it was P11, which is good as well, because we're not quite inside that top 10. It does drag us down into the midfield, but, you know, we kind of got to work with what we've got, right? I think it's a pretty, given the lap that we did, the car that we've got, I think it's pretty fair. And we're going to add just an extra lap of fuel here, 16, so that we can afford to run in rich for a little bit, but we don't want to carry too much extra weight around the circuit. And the optimal strategy that the game gave us is the one that we're going to stick with, because that seems to be the quickest around the circuit. Lights coming on now. I was super nervous, I'm not going to lie. I got a bit of an adrenaline rush, which is weird because I don't normally for this sort of thing, but I did, and we got a good start actually, all things considered. We did get jumped from behind, but relative to the cars in front, we didn't lose too much time, so I was relatively happy with it, but getting caught on the inside now, and in the spirits of trying to keep my front wing intact, I conceded those 2 positions, and we are down a couple now, which is fine because we can afford to lunge it down the inside of Ricciardo here like we do. The AI is super slow on the first lap. They form a bit of a train, but we're giving the Aussie a bit of his own medicine from our fellow Patriot, but that's all good. I got that line terribly wrong, and that puts us under pressure from Ricciardo behind. We lost quite a bit of time to Kvyat in front as well. Still trying to take 4 through there. I don't know why I didn't learn my lesson, to be honest. I don't know. It's confusing me watching this back. I don't understand why I did it, but we're under pressure from behind. For whatever reason, the AI don't seem to struggle on colder tyres the same way that the user does. You can see every time I turn in, I just don't have any bite. There's nothing happening. So it usually takes about half a lap to get that sorted. You can see a replay from the external cameras here. We're at the top of your screen in the middle in front of the Renault. We get a decent start. It's not that bad, but the AlphaTauri and the Racing Point were crazy off the line, and that just sent us to the inside, cost us a couple of positions. So now it's a recovery drive in a way. You know, I at least want to maintain position. I think that's decent. If we can gain some, that's even better. But we're on the back of Kvyat. We're starting to gain that time. We get our first warning to track limits. Obviously, you saw when we started the green mode, we set strict corner cutting restrictions. And some tracks that's fair, others it's not so much. I think in Australia, it's just on that limit of unfair. In saying that though, it does forgive you in some corners that it definitely should penalise you, so it kind of does all balance out. But now that the tyres are kind of coming up to temp, we're back on the right on the diffuser of Kvyat, and we're kind of breaking away from Ricciardo a little bit, almost 6 tenths by the end of the straight. And I was going to send this up the inside. We probably had the pace, but I thought first lap, it's a long race, let's back off. It's not a good place to overtake there in T1. Somehow that's exceeding the track limits, so we're already at 2 warnings. We get 1 more, we get a 3-second penalty. And we've got 15 laps to do. Beautiful move up the inside of Kvyat there. Nice and tidy. Dove it up late, just harder on the brakes. And it was clean. It was super, super clean. So now Perez is the target. We're back where we started. It's things are looking good. Still taking fourth. I want to hit past Luke. I want to go and punch him in the head and just say, mate, what are you doing? It's interesting though, trying to settle into a rhythm, even with something as small as a 25% race, it takes about 20-25 minutes. You really do need to settle into a rhythm quite quickly. And if you're able to do that, you can kind of make some good time on the AI. But if you do something like that, you miss a turn in, there was meters beyond where I should have done it. Not a lot, but it puts us under pressure from Kvyat, and we have to defend instead of attacking Perez. And that could be the difference sometimes. Losing a position, getting caught in those battles, it costs you time over the course of an entire race, and you don't want to do that. Your ultimate goal is to get the fastest race time possible. It's not necessarily about overtaking the cars in front. Sometimes it's best to just let the car behind you in front, because it means both of you are going to finish faster. But a gorgeous run on Perez there. We're going to get that move done, and to be honest, I thought I'd cleared him. I did not realise that I had not cleared him. I'm not used to the arrows on this game yet. I don't have any mirrors. So I've turned in on him, and we're going to cut to a replay of that now. That was just... I should have had a penalty. Not only should I have had a penalty, I should have been in the wall, and I should have had no car to finish this Grand Prix with. But somehow, we get away with it, and a couple of laps later, we're 3.5 seconds up on Kvyat and chasing the pack ahead. We were in a bit of no man's land for a while, but it seems that the guys behind just got caught trying to fight with each other. For whatever reason, as I was saying, sometimes you just got to let the car in front. You just got to let it go. You're all trying to get to the end. Or sometimes you just don't attack. You just follow the car through and chase the gap ahead. But they didn't do that. And these guys in front of us are now doing exactly what I've just said not to do. Fighting each other. I've reeled in a 1.5 second gap in about 3 corners. And now I'm actually, they're traveling too slowly. I'm trying to get around them the safest way possible. And you do not want to be making a move into this chicane. And Norris hits the wall, then hits me. So I've got a bit of damage now. He's still alongside me. So I leave him the room because he hits me again. And that's a compromise run for the two of us. And somehow I've saved that. I don't know how I didn't win that. But now we've lost a second or two to the cars ahead. And Norris comes back at me. Again, we're going to cut to a replay of that in just a second. Because there was some dodgy stuff, to be honest. It was really dodgy. Look at this. He hits the wall. And then he hits me, and then it sends me wide, and fortunately though we were able to close that gap to Sainz not too long after. This isn't exactly from where we cut before. Going into this T1, getting DRS is so important on this straight. I'm trying to break it from Norris. I'm trying to make sure he doesn't keep DRS, and I'm trying to keep it with Sainz, and then eventually Stroll, hopefully. But I missed my turn. The dirty air in this game is something else. It's not like it used to be, and it's probably true to life, or closer to the true to life dirty air feeling. Danny Rick would be proud, man. I think I almost deserve the Honey Badger 2.0. That's 3 moves, I think, into that well, not quite hairpin, but just about hairpin. You're just able to jump on the brakes so late, and I was really on the threshold of the braking limit there, and that's, to be honest, that can be attributed to my load cell pedal, which I've just gotten, and it makes such a difference. But we've done it. We've gotten ourselves a 3-second penalty. And a warning, the corner immediately following the penalty. So now no matter what we do, we're going to lose 3 seconds at the end of the race. So we have to, as you can see, our teammate pull out of the race there. He retired with terminal damage, but we have to bridge a 3-second gap to the car behind if we want to maintain position. We're 2.5 seconds up on Sainz now, so if we can get ahead of Stroll, or stick behind Stroll and pull ahead, I know we at least are only going to lose a position right now. It's time to pit though. This pit entry is actually quite nice. I was stoked. And I haven't practiced them a whole lot, but we just make it under the speed limit in time, put the pit limiter on, and we're coming in when every other driver is coming in. The idea here is hopefully to jump Stroll. If we can get a quick enough stop, release from the pit lane quick enough, it could have been better. We let that go green for a little bit, but I didn't want to jump that start, obviously. Almost getting out ahead of Stroll, and my pit limiter would not disengage. It just wouldn't disengage, and I was getting frustrated, but we've got a safety car. Just about the whole field has pitted. Some of the front runners have had an accident here, and I'm just trying to make sure I don't run over any debris. With simulation damage, that's going to give you a puncture, and we don't want that. We're going to cut to a replay in just a moment of that, and so we're cutting to the end of the safety car period. We wanted to skip all of that. I think we're under it for 3 laps or 4 laps or so. We'll see in just a second here. Yeah, it's lap 10 now. So we've got a 5-lap sprint to the end of the Grand Prix. We're in P4. This is all for position now. It's fair game. Everyone's made all the stops they're making. We obviously have that 3-second penalty, so we want... this isn't good news for us, to be honest. The field bunching up means we're going to lose a bunch of positions. But we're in P4. We've just got to make of that what we can, try and get ahead of Stroll as quickly as possible, and bridge a 3-second gap. That would be ideal. That would get us a podium in our first race, which is broken and not at all how things should be. But as I said to you before, cold tyres do not affect the AI the way that they affect the user. And we're going 3 wide into turn 3. As I get bumped and bumped and bumped, man, I was a little bit scared because I'd gotten so far in the Grand Prix. I've got such good track position. I thought we were going to get tangled and bin it. What even is that? What is that? Danny Rick and Charles Leclerc getting a little bit too ambitious for my liking. But now I'm fingers crossed. They're 2 quick drivers in real life, comparably quick cars. In the game, of course, the Ferrari's much faster, but I'm hoping they fight each other and I could keep this P4. That's the ideal right now. We do have a bit of a ways to go in order to make that happen, though. I think right now we'd probably be set back to about P8. You can see that train, the racing point down there. That's roughly where we'd be set back to if we were to finish as things are. So I'm hoping Stroll can get on with it and we can pull away from this group behind. As I said, maybe get the jump on him and try and set some super quick laps. We've still got well over a lap of fuel left, so we're going to be enriched pretty much to the end of the Grand Prix now. We saved it all under safety car. I get a good run here on Stroll. He's just got that speed. For whatever reason, that Mercedes engine and whatever they've done to that car, the pink Mercedes as we've all been calling it this year, it's just a little bit too quick for us to bridge that gap. So now we've just got to play a smart game. Do I risk losing time trying to fight Stroll? Do I sit patiently?
This is your final lap of the race.
In the end, I was trying to get past him. Every attempt that I could, I was trying, but from all the traction zones, he was just getting a much better exit. I couldn't close the gap. It actually resulted in the guys behind us catching up. Look at that train behind us. It's still going to be behind that racing point, I believe, that we will be set back to. Maybe the Renault in front. If we can, it'll be close. It'll be close anyway. Regardless, it's not looking good. We're going to lose at least 4 positions here. That's a fact because of that penalty, which I was a little bit annoyed about. But at the same time, I did cut the track, so I did deserve it, and I didn't want to flash it back. I'm going to try not to use flashbacks. I do have them on because sometimes there are ridiculous penalties or accidents or things that just happen that are absolutely not my fault. And I know that that's racing sometimes, but within reason, I want to try not to use them. I don't. If I bin the car and it's my own fault, then so be it. We'll retire from the race and it would be an effort. But nevertheless, I didn't flash back. That penalty, because I think I did deserve it. I got a couple of warnings after that fact, some of which were deserved, others not. So total 5 warnings. At least 3 of them definitely were deserved. So we're going to cross the line in P4. Albon wins the race amazingly. Let's see where that actually gets us. P8. That's not bad. We're inside the points. Driver of the day is Lance Stroll, just because he's had such a phenomenal race, I guess, working through the grid. We'll see in a moment where he started and where we all started. I don't know how to feel about that Grand Prix. It was definitely entertaining. I wish we didn't get the penalties, because it would have been a P4 to start with. We would have actually checked the box for the 5 constructors points that we need for the goal with our sponsor, Shark. We didn't quite get that. I think we put a couple on the board, which is okay. But I do like that helmet, that livery. That head looks weirdly like mine. It's weird. I promise I didn't scan for Codemasters, though I wish I did. We can see the podium here. Albon, something we haven't seen yet in real life. But what a weird podium. Kvyat and Stroll. Literally 3 of the people that you would not expect at all to see on a podium. Though we have seen Kvyat on there once before. Stroll too, actually. Amazingly. But what an entertaining race that was. Definitely had a lot of fun. Like I said, I was a bit nervous to start. get a rush, you know that it counts. We finished P8 there, very, very close to Sergio Perez in the racing point. Actually an interesting order. It was actually good to see a mix of things, but no Mercedes finishing inside the points with only a single Ferrari and a single Red Bull. Interesting stuff. Our teammate, obviously the only DNF, actually setting a reasonably competitive lap time given the stage of the Grand Prix that he disappeared from, but P8 in the Drivers' Championship, of course, and P7 in the Constructors. Hopefully we can step that up into the next race, but that's been the episode today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I said, super excited to get this going. Please like and subscribe. The next episode shouldn't be too far away. It's already recorded. I've just got to put it together and get it all sorted. So thank you for sticking it out this far, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.